recited, trying to summarize a little bit of it. And we started talking about the idea of hidayah being spread out throughout Surah Al-Baqarah. And inshallah ta'ala today, for these 5 minutes or so that we have, we'll continue on that idea and talk a little bit about the second juz as well as portions of the third juz that we just recited today. So the theme and the concept of hidayah continues out throughout the second juz, which is mostly focused on a lot of laws, ahkam. There's the law of hajj, laws of marriage, laws of divorce, as well as the law of fasting. The idea of hidayah starts with the beginning of the juz, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the change in the qibla and how Allah says that we only made you turn towards Jerusalem, right, to see which of you would follow the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, وَإِنْ كَانَتْ لَكَبِيرَةً إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ, that this is difficult except for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave hidayah to, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave guidance to. And then we also see later on in a little bit, Allah talks about, connects this idea of guidance to sabr, to those who have patience, when he's talking about الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. And then in the next ayah, that these people, that when musibah, right, when something afflicts them, a catastrophe happens to them, and they say, we belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we ultimately return to Him. With regards to them, He says that upon them is they are the ones who love the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ, and they are the ones who are rightly guided. And then we come to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about fasting. As we all know, the month of Ramadan is the month of hidayah, is the month of guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says with regards to the Quran, that شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a book of guidance, which is the Quran, in the month of guidance. And the interesting thing about this ayah is that He says هدى للناس. And if you remember, the first night we talked about the idea of hidayah being هدى للمتقين. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the Quran on the first night as being a guidance for those who are taqwa, for those who are God conscious. But here in this ayah He says هدى للناس, that it is guidance for mankind. Right? So what's going on here? The idea here is that yes, the Quran is a guidance for everyone. Right? It is meant as a guidance for every single person. And with regards to those who have taqwa, what's meant by there is that it is those who have taqwa, who are God conscious, who will be guided by it, who will pay heed to it, who will pay attention to it, and who will follow it. It is ultimately a guidance for mankind, right? As we all know, the Quran is a guidance for mankind. But that first night, that Huda lil-Muttaqeen portion is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that those who have taqwa are the ones who will ultimately follow it, ultimately implement His teachings, and what have you. And then later on in this ayah we have where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks a little bit more about the month of Ramadan. وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. Right? One of the purposes of this month is that so that you may proclaim the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that, the guidance that He has given you. And He further goes on, He says, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you may also be grateful and thankful. And interestingly, there's another ayah somewhat ahead that we skipped. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in it, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. There's this idea of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, remember me and I'll remember you, and give thanks to me and do not be disobedient, do not be ungrateful. Ibn Abbas with regards to this dhikr, this remembrance, he says that this is obedience. That when Allah says فَاذْكُرُونِي, what He means is obey me, right? Obey me in the things that I've commanded you to perform and staying away from the prohibitions that I've given you. And أذكركم, I will remember you in the sense that for those things that you do, I will reward you accordingly. and give you that is what you need. And washkuruli, they also define this as not just plain thankfulness, but obedience as well. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a different ayah, He says, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you're thankful, I will increase you, I will add you in whatever it is that you have. And then وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ, the opposite of that is, if you're disobedient, if you're ungrateful, right? If you disbelieve, إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ, that my punishment is severe. So we have this idea of gratefulness, right, also being tied into hidayah. And then we have a very powerful ayah which comes up, which is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. And this ayah is special in the sense that the Prophet ﷺ, whenever the Sahaba, the companions, they come to him with questions, the format of the reply that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tends to give is يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ something, that they ask you with regards to something. And then the reply of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in the format of فَقُلْ, tell them, right, say to them. There you see throughout the Quran, many يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنْفَالِ, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الشَّهْرِ الْحَرَامِ. There are many يَسْأَلُونَكَ, they ask you with this, and you almost always see فَقُلْ, you say to them such and such. But this one, what sets it apart is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when they ask you with regards to me, when they ask you about me, Allah doesn't reply with the format of you say to them, rather He gives the direct answer, right? And this is the special thing about dua, in that فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I am qareeb. He doesn't tell the Prophet ﷺ, tell them that I'm qareeb, that I'm close, but rather He answers Himself and He says, I am close by, I am near, so you ask me directly, right? You have no intermediary, similar to how the Catholics have to go through their priest and what have you. We have no such concept idea in our deen, right? But there's a condition tied to this dua that when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly, أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, that I'll answer the call of the caller, but the condition is فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, that they should answer my call first. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I called you first, right? I invited you first. In order for me to respond to your call and give you an answer to what you need, you first need to respond to me, right? And then He says, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that they may be guided. So then again, there's this idea of guidance that keeps coming up. And this condition idea also, right, as we mentioned, is in فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ, right? Allah says, remember me and I'll remember you. So there's a transaction here, in that if you do such and such, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do what it is that you need of you. And then the juz ends with the story of Bani Israel, when the chieftains come together and they ask their prophet to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to appoint us a king, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appoints Talut over them as a king, so that they may go to battle and fight, so they may be unified. But most of them refused, except but a few. And so there's also the idea of guidance here, in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided them some sort of guidance, right? In the sense of appointing a king for them to follow, but most of them refused. But the ones who ultimately followed were successful. كَمْ مِنْ فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That how many people that are small in group who overcome, who defeat a larger group. So there's this idea of truth will always prevail, regardless of how many people follow it, regardless of whether it's the majority or the minority. The truth will ultimately prevail, and as we all saw in the next ayat, that Dawood killed Jalut and they ultimately overcame their adversaries. So this idea of hidayah continues throughout Surah Al-Baqarah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us hidayah, and of those who ultimately follow in His guidance and are successful as a result of it. Barakallahu fikum.